Hello, people. Watchman blows the horn here, and I'm blowing the horn as loudly as I can to let people know what time it is so they know what they ought to be doing. Welcome to this presentation. There are many believers out there who have doubts in their minds with regards to the issue of whether we as believers will be here during the time of the Antichrist, during the time of what they refer to as the tribulation, but in actual fact is referred to as the time of Jacob's trouble. So, in order for us to answer this question and to dispel these fears, we must understand the difference between Jacob, who is called and who is a saint, and Israel, who is chosen and elect. You see, once you understand this difference, it'll all make sense. So, during this study, I will be pointing out a number of things. I encourage you to take notes. And I assure you, if you had any doubts with regards to whether you would be here or not during the time of Jacob's trouble, all your fears will be allayed by the time you get to the end of this study. So, without much ado, let us proceed. Before we carry on, though, I've been shadow banned by YouTube for over 2 years now, I suspect. Um, my subscriber base hasn't gone beyond 14,100 for about a year and a half. So it's obvious that I've been shadow banned. I think it was because one time I complained about them putting adverts on my videos. So can I please ask that you like this video and share it? Please share it far and wide. I need it to go viral because many people need to hear this message so that it'll put their hearts at rest. So please like it, share it, and please subscribe to the channel. That would make me so happy. And here's a great big thank you in advance, trusting that you will do this. Once again, thank you. So, this whole thing goes back to Genesis. Remember when Jacob was blessing his children, and when Joseph brought his two sons to Jacob, Ephraim and Manasseh. Remember, it says that now the eyes of Israel were dim. Remember, this is a reference to, remember what it says? Blindness in part has come upon the children of Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles have come in. So you see, when Jacob was, or Israel was giving the blessings, his eyes were dim. For age, so that he could not see. And he brought them near unto him, and he kissed them and embraced them. Genesis 48, verse 10. And Israel stretched out his right hand and laid it upon Ephraim's head, who was the younger, and his left hand upon Manasseh's head, guiding his hands wittingly, for Manasseh was the firstborn. Genesis 48, verse 14. And listen to what Israel said. The angel which redeemed me from all evil. So at some point, Jacob was redeemed. You see, when Jacob wrestled with the angel, as told us in the book of Genesis, Israel refers to this, or Jacob refers to this as when he was redeemed from all evil. So you see, this shadow is one that must be fulfilled in the life of every single believer. You see, Jacob could not go back into the promised land until he had been redeemed. And he was redeemed by the angel he wrestled with. So also, we must all go through the same process. And this is what brings the distinction between Jacob, the called and saint, from Israel, the chosen and elect. So the angel which redeemed me from all evil, bless the lads, and let my name be named on them, and the name of my fathers, Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. The Goyim, Genesis 48, verse 16. So, the redemption of Jacob. And Jacob was left alone, and there wrestled a man with him until the breaking of day. And when he saw that he prevailed not against him, he touched the hollow of his thigh, and the hollow of Jacob's thigh was out of joint, as he wrestled with him. And he said, Let me go, for the day breaketh. And he said, I will not let thee go, except thou bless me. And he said unto him, What is thy name? And he said, Jacob. And he said, Thy name shall be called no more Jacob. This is the transformation, the Geulah, the redemption of Jacob, but Israel. For as a prince hast thou power with God and with men, and hath prevailed. Genesis 32, verses 24 to 28. So the man, or the angel, as Jacob later describes him, proclaims that Jacob prevailed. And his name was changed from Jacob to Israel, an indication that the redemption had taken place. You see, Jacob left the promised land, and he remained Jacob as long as he was outside of the promised land. It is the same. We are outside the promised land. We are outside the heavenly Jerusalem. However, those of us who have come to the saving knowledge of Yeshua have been redeemed. We have been translated from Jacob to Israel. We've been grafted in. That's for the Goyim. But for the children of Jacob, the biological children of Jacob who come to the saving knowledge of Yeshua, they have been redeemed. They are no longer Jacob. They have now become Israel. And all we're waiting for is the manifestation of this redemption, of this transformation. This is the transformation that took place here when Jacob wrestled this man or this angel and prevailed. and he was redeemed. And so he could return to the promised land. You get it? It's a picture of us. You see, we're all born into sin. We are the heel grabbers. We are the Jacobs. And some of us have come to the saving knowledge of Yeshua. Yeshua has redeemed us. We have been cleansed. So we've been grafted into Israel. We are now Israel. We're no longer Jacob. We're now Israel. Our names have now been written in the Lamb's Book of Life. We've been redeemed, which is exactly what happened to Jacob when he was transformed from Jacob to Israel. I hope that makes sense. Redeemed and transformed from Jacob to Israel. The angel which redeemed me from all evil, bless the lads, and let my name be named on them, and the name of my fathers, Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. Genesis 48, verse 16. So, have you been redeemed? Have you washed your robes in the blood of the Lamb? You see, Jacob is called, he is a saint, while Israel is chosen, he is the elect. For Jacob, my servant's sake, and Israel, mine elect, I have even called thee by thy name. I have surnamed thee, though thou hast not known me. So you see, Jacob, his servant, the saint, but Israel is his elect. You see the idea, the transformation. Everyone must go through that transformation. So you see, the biological descendants of Jacob are the Jacobs, the called, the saints. They're the ones referred to as the saints, the biological descendants of Jacob. But the multitude, the Goyim, as well as the biological descendants of Jacob, who have come to the saving knowledge of Yeshua and have washed their robes in the blood of Yeshua and have now been grafted back in. Because remember, at the beginning of the age, the children of Israel, their branches, the natural branches, were broken off and then they were exiled from the land, so they became Jacob. You see, whenever Jacob is outside of the land, the promised land, he is Jacob. When he comes back into the land, when he comes to the saving knowledge of Yeshua, when he's grafted back in, then he becomes once again Israel. I hope you understand the difference. So you see, here you have Jacob, the called, the saint. Okay, this is based on physical birth. These are the biological descendants of Jacob. Okay, now they are covenanted to inherit the earthly Jerusalem. You see, they've been invited to attend the Lamb's wedding feast, which takes place in the heavenly Jerusalem. However, without the transformation, they cannot attend because Jacob's name has not yet been written in the Lamb's Book of Life. You see, it is only until Jacob has an encounter with Yeshua that the transformation takes place. And then he's given spiritual birth. So this is not only open to the biological children of Jacob, the saints, it's also open to the Goyim, the Gentiles, the great multitude. So anyone who has an encounter with Yeshua is given spiritual birth, has now been grafted in, is now Israel, is now chosen, is now elect, and will inherit the heavenly Jerusalem. You see, they are no longer invited they have now been chosen to attend the Lamb's wedding feast. And their names have been written in the Lamb's book of life because they have the Ruach HaKodesh. So they will be able to attend because they will be able to enter into the kingdom of heaven because they have been born again, born from above, born spiritually. So you see, Jacob is spiritually dead. Israel is spiritually alive. Do you get this? Everyone must go through this transformation if they want to inherit the heavenly Jerusalem. See, because at the end of the age, remember, the children of Israel became Jacob because they rejected Yeshua. So their branch, the natural branch, was broken off. They became Jacob, the saints, called. They were scattered all over the earth. And then the disciples believed, and the church was born. And since then, the believers have been growing. The number of believers have been growing, and they've been grafted back in. So they are grafted back in. They become Israel, the chosen, the elect, the bride, the church. So, beginning of the age, the biological descendants of Jacob, the saints, were broken off. And then the door was opened for the Gentiles to be grafted in. And Joseph said unto him, and Joseph said unto his father, and Joseph said unto his father, not so, my father, for this is the firstborn. Put thy hand upon his head. Genesis 48, verse 18. And his father refused and said, I know it, my son, I know it. He also shall become a people, and he also shall be great. But truly, his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his seed shall become a multitude of nations. Genesis 48, verse 19. Speaking of Ephraim and Manasseh, Ephraim being the younger, the United States of America, and Manasseh being the older, Babylon the Great, United Kingdom. And he blessed them that day, saying, in these shall Israel bless, saying, God make thee as Ephraim and as Manasseh. And he set Ephraim before Manasseh. Genesis 48, verse 20. So, Ephraim and Manasseh are the ones who are covenanted to bring in the multitude, the Goyim, the Gentiles. They were mixed in with the Goyim, with the Gentiles, until the fullness of the Gentiles. For I would not, brethren, that ye should be ignorant of this mystery, lest ye should be wise in your own conceits, that blindness in part is happened to Israel. The Lord blinded them when they rejected Yeshua. Blindness in part has come unto Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles, until Ephraim and Manasseh have brought in all the Gentiles, when we are at the fullness of the Gentiles. So blindness in part has happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in. So who comes in first? The fullness of the Gentiles. And who is the fullness of the Gentiles? So who comes in first? The fullness of the Gentiles. The Gentiles come in first. The bride, the church, the elect, made up of the Gentiles and the Jews, the children of Israel, the biological children of Israel who have come to the saving knowledge of Yeshua, as well as the Gentiles, the Goyim. This is what is referred to as the fullness of the Goyim. They come in first. Okay, according to Romans chapter 11, verse 25. And so all Israel shall be saved. So after the Gentiles have been brought in, the world goes into the time of Jacob's trouble. The whole idea is, remember, Jacob is Jacob because he hasn't come to the knowledge of Yeshua. He has not been grafted back in. So that is why you have the time of Jacob's trouble, in order to provoke Jacob. And the Bible tells us that a remnant of the children of Jacob will, during that time, become elect. They will be grafted back in. So before the time of Jacob's trouble, the Gentiles, the bride, is taken out. The fullness of the Goyim, at the fullness of the Goyim. And then during the time of Jacob's trouble, Jacob goes through the trouble, and a remnant come to the saving knowledge of Yeshua, and then they are also taken out of the time of Jacob's trouble. And so all Israel shall be saved, as it is written, there shall come out of Zion the deliverer, and shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob. Remember what I said? You are Jacob. They are Jacob when they're outside the land. And in order for them to, you see, the redemption is on two levels. There is the redemption of the biological children of Jacob, when the Lord regathers them on the earth, brings them back into the land of Israel. And then there's the spiritual redemption of those who are born again, born from above, who will be gathered into the heavenly Jerusalem, the spiritual redemption. So the remnant who are delivered, who are redeemed, will be taken into the heavenly Jerusalem. They will be the guests at the wedding feast. You see, the bride are those who come to the saving knowledge of Yeshua during the age of grace. Once the rapture, the first rapture, takes place, that ends the age of grace. The children of Jacob who then become elect during the time of Jacob's trouble, who are taken out, will now become the guests at the wedding feast. So, there shall come out of Zion the deliverer, and shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob. For this is my covenant unto them, when I shall take away their sins. Romans 11, verses 26 and 27. Once again, redeemed and transformed. You must go through the process. You must change from being Jacob to Israel. You must be grafted in. You must be redeemed as Jacob was redeemed. So, Ephraim and Manasseh, two nations covenanted to take the gospel to the Gentiles, to bring in the Goyim, the multitude. And that is why they became the most blessed of the Gentile nations. However, they are now in apostasy. And this is how we know that we're at the fullness of the Goyim, because Ephraim and Manasseh have turned away. They have apostatized. So we know that we're at the end. You see, in apostasy, Manasseh becomes Babylon the Great, and Ephraim becomes the virgin daughter of Babylon. So, Abraham, the spiritual man, written in red, the womb of Sarah is opened spiritually, and that's why her name is written in red, and her son opens the spiritual line, which will lead to the spiritual redemption. Ishmael, on the other hand, is not the spiritual line. He is cast out. So, Isaac gives birth to Esau and Jacob. However, Jacob is of the spiritual line. Let's remember, the womb of Rebekah was opened spiritually. So, Israel gives birth to 12 sons from Leah, Zilpah, Dilhah, and Rachel. Rachel is the one who had her womb opened spiritually, who gave birth to Joseph. So the spiritual bloodline carries on with Ephraim and Manasseh, who mix in with the Goyim. They are gentilized. They mix in mainly with the children of Edom. Meanwhile, Levi, Judah, and Benjamin are part of the house of Judah, the ones referred to as the Jews, who have actually come back to the land and are mainly in the land of Israel at the moment. The other tribes, however, are still in exile. The Galut Edom, the exile in Edom. So, Ephraim and Manasseh, who are gentilized, remember, they are the ones covenanted to bring in the great multitude, the Goyim, which they have done. However, they have now apostatized. But before judgment comes upon them, the spiritual children, because remember, this is the spiritual bloodline, will be extracted from Manasseh and Ephraim, from the gentilized world, and grafted back in to Israel. But their redemption will be the spiritual redemption. So when the fullness of the Goyim comes, the 144,000 first fruits of the time of Jacob's trouble, and the great multitude, the Goyim, the bride of Yeshua, Ephraim, assembly of the firstborn, will be redeemed and taken into the heavenly Jerusalem. And then judgment will come upon the Gentile nations. But then out of the Gentile nations, the Lord will regather the lost tribes to the land. So the house of Judah and the house of Israel will once again be united under the leadership of Yeshua. The two families, the two nations, two countries, two kingdoms shall become one. So, the transformation. So, for those who have an encounter with Yeshua and wash their robes in the blood of Yeshua and cleanse themselves and are spiritually born again and have become Israel, the chosen, the elect, they now have their names written in the Lamb's Book of Life and have been chosen to attend the Lamb's wedding feast. So, out of the dispensation of grace, which we are in now, which will end with the rapture, at the end of the dispensation of grace, the elect bride and the 144,000 will be raptured out. They are the ones referred to as the assembly of the firstborn, Ephraim. They are the ones who have washed their robes in the blood of the Lamb and made them white. Revelation 7:14. The fullness of the Goyim. Because at the fullness of the Goyim, the spiritual children are birthed into the heavenly Jerusalem. And then the exile ends as the children of Israel are regathered, or the children of Jacob are regathered into the land, that the kingdom may be restored to them. So, fullness of the Gentiles, the great multitude who come from every nation, every tribe, every tongue. So the Goyim are the ones that come from every nation, every tribe, every tongue. They're not the biological descendants of Yaakov. The children of Yaakov are different from the Goyim, the Gentiles. Once again, the children of Yaakov were the natural branches were broken off at the beginning of the age of grace. And since then, the Goyim have been grafted in, as well as the children of Yaakov who have chosen to come to the saving knowledge of Yeshua. Remember that Joseph, in his dream, described, he saw himself as a sheaf of wheat and his brothers as sheaths of wheat, and his and their sheaths bowed down to his sheath. So the Lord describes the children of Israel as wheat. And of course, his multi-colored coat represented the many nations, because Joseph took a Gentile bride, and Joseph was a shadow of Yeshua, who also will take a Gentile bride, the church, made up of every nation, every tongue. So remember, the Goyim go in first, okay? And then shall ungodliness be taken away from Jacob. That's the biological children of Jacob. The Goyim made up of the multitude, the great multitude from every tribe, every tongue, every nation. They go in first. And then they are the ones referred to as the elect. They are the chosen. They've been grafted in. The children of Jacob, on the other hand, are the saints, the called. It is only until they come to the saving knowledge of Yeshua during the time of Jacob's trouble that they are also raptured out and taken into the heavenly Jerusalem. So Yeshua, his coat here also, his apparel represents the great multitude from every nation and every tribe, and every tongue. His Gentile bride, the church. Likewise, also, as it was in the days of Lot, they did eat, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they builded, but the same day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. Even thus shall it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed. Luke 17, verses 28 to 30. When the heavenly Yerushalayim arrives, for the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, and with the trump of God, and the dead in Christ shall rise first. Then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. Wherefore, comfort one another with these words. 1 Thessalonians 4, verses 16 to 18. So, the Lord will descend with the sound of the archangel, Angel Michael, to gather the elect. Now, not the children of Jacob, the elect, those who have washed their robes in the blood of Yeshua, those who have been born spiritually, who have had their names written in the Lamb's Book of Life. They're the ones who will be gathered at the end of the age of grace. Okay? As we learn from this. And at that time shall Michael stand up. Remember, the Lord comes down, right? With a shout from heaven, with the voice of the archangel. That's Michael. So this is speaking of the same thing. And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people. That's the children of Israel. Now, that's not talking about the children of Jacob now. We're talking about those who have been grafted in, those who have been given the new birth, spiritual birth, those who have been born from above. They're the ones being referred to here. Those who have had their names written in the Lamb's Book of Life. Remember, the children of Jacob have not had their names written in the Lamb's Book of Life. Their branches have been broken off. And only a remnant will be grafted back in during the time of Jacob's trouble. So this is talking about the church, the Goyim, the fullness of the Gentiles. This is when Michael comes and gathers the elect once again. And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as has never was since there was a nation, even to that same time, the time of tribulation. So before the rapture, there will be a time of tribulation as has never been, according to this. Okay? And at that time, thy people shall be delivered. That's the children of Israel, those who have been grafted in, the great multitude. Everyone that shall be found written in the book Daniel 12, verse 1. So you see, this is not talking about the end of the time of Jacob's trouble. No, this is talking about before the time of Jacob's trouble begins. There will be tribulation before the rapture, great tribulation before the rapture. Okay? And there are other parts of the scripture that bear this out, as you will find out as we go along. So I hope you've noted this. Michael comes down and he delivers those whose names have been written in the Lamb's book of life. Okay? After a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation. A time of tribulation. Okay? And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Matthew 24, verse 31. The elect are being gathered. Remember, the elect are those who have had an encounter with Yeshua. They've washed their robes in the Lamb's blood and made it white. They're the ones whose names have been written in the Lamb's book of life. So according to Matthew here, and he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Matthew 24, verse 31. The elect being gathered. It's the same thing spoken of in Zechariah 2, verse 11. And many nations, the great multitude, many nations, okay? The Goyim, great multitude, at the fullness of the Gentiles, shall be joined to the Lord. Joining, that's speaking of marriage, coming together. We shall meet the Lord in the air, and we shall forever be with the Lord. Shall be joined to the Lord in that day, and shall be my people, and I will dwell in the midst of thee. And thou shalt know that the Lord of hosts hath sent me unto thee. Zechariah 2, verse 11. Same thing spoken of in Revelation 12, verse 5. See, the man-child is one with his bride. They are, when they go into heaven, when they go to the throne, when they go before the throne of Jehovah. And she brought forth a man-child, who? Zion, the heavenly Jerusalem. Remember, heavenly Jerusalem is the one who's birthing the spiritual children. Rachel, the spiritual children being rebirthed into the heavenly Jerusalem. And she brought forth a man-child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. Who's that? Yeshua. And remember, he says that he will also give us a rod of iron with which we will rule with him, because we are his bride. And her child was caught up unto God and to his throne in the heavenly Jerusalem. Revelation 12, verse 5. So we will be the elect, the chosen, Israel, those who have been grafted in, will be taken into the heavenly Jerusalem at the end of the age of grace. The man-child, the lamb who was slain. And the Lord said unto Satan, the Lord rebuke thee, O Satan, even the Lord that hath chosen Jerusalem rebuke thee. Is not this a brand plucked out of the fire? Zechariah 3, verse 2. This describing when we are taken before the throne of God, and Satan is waiting there to accuse Yeshua, and then he is rebuked by Satan, which is what causes the war in heaven to erupt, which eventually leads to Satan being cast out, because we have been taken into the heavenly Jerusalem. We have been redeemed. The manifestation of the redemption has taken place. So the elect are the ones that are gathered and taken into the heavenly Jerusalem. Note that the elect, the great multitude, those who come from every nation and every tribe and all of them, not just the Jacobs now, that you see Jacob, those are the biological children of Jacob. We're talking now of the Goyim, the great multitude. At the fullness of the Goyim, they are raptured and taken into the heavenly Jerusalem. So, Satan is rebuked. You see, the elect are snatched out the time of trouble. That's why it says here, is not this a brand plucked out? You see, Yeshua is the brand. The word used here is advocate, the one who he's our advocate. He's the one who has been advocating on our behalf before the throne. So here he comes and he snatches us out of the fire. Is this not the brand plucked out of the fire? We are plucked out of the fire and taken into the heavenly Jerusalem. Your heavenly Jerusalem. That is why Satan is so upset. That is why he accuses Yeshua. But the Archangel Michael rebukes him. See, when we are transformed in the twinkling of an eye and we're given spiritual bodies, the wheat harvest. Remember Joseph's dream? Wheat, the wheat sheaves? And we are translated from earth to heaven. So we go into the heavenly Jerusalem, the elect go into the heavenly Jerusalem. So Revelation 7 now describes us before the throne of Jehovah, holding palm branches when we've been delivered. And how do we know that we're the ones being delivered here? How do we know that these aren't the saints out of the time of Jacob's trouble? Remember, those who will be redeemed out of the time of Jacob's trouble are saints. They are the descendants of the biological descendants of Jacob. We, on the other hand, are delivered at the end of the age of grace, at the fullness of the Goyim, the fullness of the Gentiles. So the fullness of the Gentiles, great multitude, Goyim, the elect bride, the multitude from every tribe, every tongue. That's the elect. So after these things I looked, and behold, a great multitude, see, which no one could number, of all nations, tribes, peoples, and tongues. So this is not just the descendants of Jacob now. This is the Goyim. And remember what Romans tells us, that the Gentiles must first come in, the fullness of the Gentiles must first come in, and then ungodliness will be taken away from Jacob. So during the time of Jacob's trouble, a remnant will come to the realization that Yeshua is Lord. They will be grafted back in and they will be raptured. They will become the guests at the wedding feast. So here is describing the elect. Okay, and of course, I've said, how do we know that this is the elect? This is the great multitude. The elect are the great multitude. So, after these things I looked, and behold, a great multitude which no one could number, of all nations, tribes, peoples, and tongues, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes, with palm branches in their hands. Revelation 7, verse 9. And cried with a loud voice, saying, Salvation to our God, which sitteth upon the throne, and unto the Lamb. Revelation 7, verses 9 to 10. So you see, the great multitude, they come in first. This is the church of the firstborn, the church of the firstborn Ephraim, the 144,000 and great multitude children of Zion. Isaiah 49, verse 20, Hebrews 12, verse 22 to 24, Revelation 7, and Zechariah 3 give you the picture of this church of the firstborn. They're the ones to come in first, out of the, after, at the end of the age of grace. Okay? Okay. And many nations shall be joined to the Lord in that day, and shall be my people, and I will dwell in the midst of thee, and thou shalt know that the Lord of hosts has sent me unto thee. Zechariah 2, verse 11. After this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude which no man could number, of all nations and kindred and peoples and tongues, stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hands. Revelation 7, verse 9. The elect. And crying out with a loud voice, saying, Salvation belongs to our God who sits on the throne and to the Lamb. Because we would have just been saved. We've just gotten into, we've just arrived before the throne of the Almighty. So we are elated and we are praising the Lord. And that's why we're saying salvation belongs to our God, because He's just saved us, who sits on the throne and to the Lamb. All the angels stood around the throne, and the elders and the four living creatures, and fell on their faces before the throne and worshipped God. Revelation 7, verses 10 and 11. Saying, Amen, blessings and glory and wisdom, thanksgiving and honor and power and might be to our God forever and ever. Amen. Then one of the elders answered, saying to me, Who are these arrayed in white robes? And where did they come from? Okay, so note this. The elders asking John, who are these in white robes? Okay, Revelation 7, verses 12, 13. And John says, And I said to him, Sir, you know. So he said to me, These are the ones who come out of great tribulation. So you see, the elect go through tribulation before the birthing into the heavenly Jerusalem. As stated here, they go through great tribulation. You see, tribulation simply means trouble. So using it to label a period is absolutely wrong. That's what keeps causing confusion. So after the halfway point of the time of Jacob's trouble, when the Antichrist goes into the temple and proclaims himself to be God, and Jerusalem is surrounded and attacked, and half the city is sacked, women raped, men, killed, and people taken into captivity. At that point in time, there's also great tribulation. Okay, but before the rapture also comes great tribulation. Great tribulation just means great trouble. So you can use the phrase great tribulation to describe, uh, different time periods. It just describes what you're going through. It doesn't label the period. So calling the second half of the time of Jacob's trouble the great tribulation is wrong. The time is called the time of Jacob's trouble. Okay, during the time of Jacob's trouble, after the halfway point, they go through great tribulation, just as the elect bride also go through great tribulation before they are raptured out. I hope that makes sense. So, these are the ones who come out of the great tribulation and washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. So this is during the time of the age of grace. That's the only time that you wash your robes in the blood of the Lamb. At the time of Jacob's trouble, that has ended. The blood of the Lamb covers the time of the age of grace. So therefore they are before the throne of God and serve him day and night in his temple, and he who sits on the throne will dwell among them. Revelation 7, verses 14 and 15. Do you get it? The Lord dwells in their midst. They are his bride. So they go through great tribulation. So great tribulation is coming. And according to Yeshua, he says that we will have tribulation 10 days, and then will come the crowning. Remember that once we get to heaven, the first thing that takes place is the coronation of Yeshua, and then he will crown the elect. These things I have spoken unto you, that in me ye might have peace. In the world ye shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. John 16, verse 33. So we will have tribulation. To him that overcometh will I grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I also overcame, and am sat down with my Father in his throne. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. Revelation 3, verse 21 and 22. Fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried, and ye shall have tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life. Revelation 2, verse 10. So you see, tribulation before death and the crowning, because that's the coronation is what the first thing that takes place when we get to heaven. So, and the Lord keeps saying that he that overcomes shall sit with me on my throne. And the fifth seal, right, describes um describes the persecution. Okay? And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto death. This is how we overcome, because there will be great tribulation before the birth. And we overcome because we do not love our lives unto death, according to Revelation 12, verse 11, speaking of the elect bride, the great multitude, who go through great tribulation and are now before the throne of God, as we read in Revelation 7. Okay? And this tribulation is spoken of in Matthew 24, verse 9 to 14, and Revelation 6, from verse 9 to 11. For whosoever is born of God overcometh the world, and this is the victory that overcometh the world, even our faith. Who is he that overcometh the world but he that believeth that Jesus is the Son of God? 1 John 5, verses 4 to 5. So remember, those who overcome are the ones who come to the heavenly Jerusalem and are before the throne. Remember that the children of Jacob have not come to the knowledge of Yeshua, so they have not overcome. Okay, because according to this, belief in Yeshua is what makes us overcome. Okay, so this is talking to the saints, the elect. Okay, the overcomers are the ones who have washed their robes in the blood of the Lamb. You see, when you get spiritual birth, that's when you wash your robes in the blood of the Lamb. That is when you are born again, born from above. That is when your name is written in the Lamb's book of life. Okay? That is the only time you get to go before the throne of Jehovah. Behold, I come quickly. Hold that fast which thou hast, that no man take thy crown. Him that overcometh will I make a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go no more out. And I will write upon him the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, which is New Jerusalem. That's the heavenly Jerusalem, which cometh down out of heaven from my God. And I will write upon him my new name. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. This is talking to the churches, the Goyim, the elect, from every tribe and every tongue, every people. Revelation 3, verses 11 to 13. So, We are the ones described here because thrones will be cast down, thrones will be set up, and we will sit with Yeshua when he is crowned. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heaven, speaking of the end, strove upon the great sea. I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. His throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands ministered unto him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was set, and the books were opened. I saw in the night vision, and behold, one like the Son of Man, come with the clouds of heaven, and came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him, and there was given him dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all people, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed. Daniel 7 verses 2, 9 and 10, 13 and 14. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, Now is come salvation and strength, and the kingdom of our God, and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto the death. Revelation 12, verses 10 and 11. The one who sits on the throne and the Lamb. They shall neither hunger any more nor thirst any more. The sun shall not strike them, nor any heat. For the Lamb who is in the midst of the throne will shepherd them and lead them to living fountains of water, and God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. Revelation 7, verses 16 and 17. Ask now and see whether a man is ever in labor with child. So after the rescue of the elect, we now go into the time of Jacob's trouble. And this is where we get that phrase, the time of Jacob's trouble. This is it's from Jeremiah describing the time when the children of Jacob will go through trouble, and then a remnant um will be redeemed. Ask now and see whether a man is ever in labor with child. So why do I see every man with his hands on his loins, like a woman in labor, and all faces turn pale? Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it, and it is the time of Jacob's trouble. But he shall be saved out of it. Jeremiah 30, verses 6 and 8. So you see, the time of Jacob's trouble, in order to get him to come to the truth, and then he will be saved out of it. And what begins this time of Jacob's trouble? It's the confirming of the covenant at the beginning of the time of Jacob's trouble. Then he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week, that's 7 years. But in the middle of the week, he shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering, and on the wing of abominations shall be one who makes desolate, even until the consummation which is determined is poured out on the desolate. Daniel 9, verse 27. So, this is what Jesus was talking about when he says, when you see the abomination that causes desolation, know that Jerusalem is about to be made desolate. And the abomination that causes desolation happens halfway through the time of Jacob's trouble. Okay? So, Daniel, Daniel speaks of this period. And notice when Daniel is speaking of those going through what the beast puts them through, he describes them as saints. He doesn't call them elect. Okay, because those are the people left on the earth after the elect have been raptured and taken into the Lord's tabernacle, the heavenly Jerusalem. Okay, so then I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceedingly dreadful, whose teeth were of iron, and his nails of brass, which devoured, brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet. Daniel 7, verse 19. And of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell, even of that horn that had eyes. This is the little horn now, the Antichrist. The beast, speaking of, is Islam. Out of Islam rises the 10 horns and then the little horn. So the little horn is the Antichrist. Okay? The also referred to as the beast, but the beast described out of whom the 10 horns came out is Islam. Even of that horn that had eyes and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows, I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints. This is Daniel now. So you see, the horn, the Antichrist, makes war with the saints, not the elect. Okay? And prevailed against them. Daniel 7, verses 20, 21. So he prevailed against the saints. Until the Ancient of Days came and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High. And the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. Daniel 7, verse 22. This is at the end of the 7-year tribulation now, when Yeshua will come down and he will restore the kingdom, the earthly kingdom, to the saints on the earth, not the elect in heaven. Okay? Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down and break it in pieces. Daniel 7, verse 23. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings, spoken of also in Revelation 17, the 10 kings. Also spoken of in Zechariah 11, because Yeshua actually defeats 3 of these 10 kings. And the 10 kings out of this kingdom are 10. The 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall rise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings. Daniel 7, verse 24. And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints. See, once again, it's the saints, the children of Jacob, of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of times. Daniel 7, verse 25. So you see, it is the saints who go through the time of this Jacob's trouble and who are overcome by the Antichrist, the little horn. But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion, to consume and to destroy it unto the end. And the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints, the children of Jacob. That's the earthly kingdom of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominion shall serve and obey him. This is Yeshua now. Daniel 7, verses 26 and 27. Hitherto is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my Hitherto is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my cogitations much troubled me, and my countenance changed in me, but I kept the matter in my heart. Daniel 7, verse 28. So Daniel states it is the saints who are overcome by um the Antichrist, the little horn. Okay. And then, as we read earlier, the what begins the time of Jacob's trouble is the confirming of the Abraham Accords, the covenant with many. He shall confirm it for 1 week, and in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of abominations, that's the abomination that causes desolation, spoken of by Jesus in Matthew 24. He shall make desolate. That is what will bring destruction when he goes into the temple and carries out this abomination. Okay, proclaiming that he is the Lord. The Lord will bring desolation upon the temple, even until the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. So the desolate is the Antichrist, and that which has been determined are the bowls. Remember, the bowls will be poured upon the throne of the beast. When you read about the bowls in Revelation, I suggest you do that. That is what is being referred to here. And that determined that the bowl judgments shall be poured upon the desolate one, that is the Antichrist. Daniel 7, verse 27. And Daniel 9, verse 27. And they worshipped the dragon which gave power unto the beast. Okay? And they worshipped the beast, saying, who is like the beast? Who is able to make war with him? Revelation 13, verse 4. And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things, same thing spoken of in Daniel, and blasphemies. And power was given unto him to continue 42 months. Remember what we just read in Daniel? That power was given to him over the saints for times and half a time. That's the 40 and 2 months. Okay. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God. Okay, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle. Remember, because they at this point in time we will be in the heavenly Jerusalem, and they will be able to see the heavenly Jerusalem from the earth. So he will curse those in the heavenly Jerusalem. He will curse God. He will curse his tabernacle, the heavenly Jerusalem, and those who dwell in the tabernacle. And who's that? The elect, who have been taken into the tabernacle. Because remember, the reason why war breaks out in heaven is because he's waiting there, and then when Yeshua brings us in, after rescuing us, he accuses Yeshua, and then Michael rebukes him. War breaks out in heaven. He is cast out. So, and he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle and them that dwell in heaven. That's us, the elect. Revelation 13, verses 5, 6. The tabernacle. He will curse us. You see that? He will be so angry because of the rescue of the elect. Okay, but he will be on the earth with the saints. Okay, and it was given unto him to make war with the saints. Note, and to overcome them, and power was given him over all kindred and tongues and nations. Those who are left on the earth now. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him whose names are not written in the Lamb's Book of Life. Remember that the only reason why we are taken into the heavenly Jerusalem is because our names have been written in the Lamb's Book of Life. So those who will be on the earth going through what the beast puts them through are those who, see what it says here, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb, slain from the foundation of the world, the Lamb's Book of Life. Remember earlier we read, Michael delivers those whose names have been written in the Lamb's book. Now these whose names have not been written in the Lamb's book are still on the earth, and the saints are on the earth. It doesn't say anything about the elect being on the earth. The elect are in the heavenly Jerusalem. That's why he's cursing the heavenly Jerusalem. And He calls it all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Revelation 13, verses 16 and 17. So, after this, when uh, the, 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 the beast is on the earth and he's doing all these things, there's a warning that goes out. And who does the warning go out to? Listen carefully. Revelation 14, verses 9 to 10. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, If any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation, and he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. Revelation 14, verses 9 and 10. And the smoke of their torment ascended up forever and ever, and they have no rest day or night who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. Here is the patience of the saints, because the saints are the ones who will be on the earth. Okay? Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus, because then during the troubles, some of the children of Jacob will come to the realization that Yeshua is Lord. This is what now makes them elect. They are now transformed from Jacob to Israel. They are now grafted back in. They are the ones, a remnant are the ones who are now raptured out of the time of Jacob's trouble, as we read in Jeremiah. This is the time of Jacob's trouble, but he will be delivered out of it. Revelation 14, verses 11, 12. So, the time of Jacob's trouble. Beginning, Yeshua comes, he proclaims himself as Messiah, he is rejected, and he leaves. Okay, the children of Israel, Jacob, turn to the Antichrist and confirm the Abraham Accords covenant with many, right, with the Antichrist. Okay, the two witnesses begin to prophesy for 3.5 years. They prophesy until for the first 3.5 years of the time of Jacob's trouble. And just before the Antichrist goes into the temple, he kills the two witnesses, and the two witnesses are taken up to heaven. Then he goes into the temple halfway into the time of Jacob's trouble and proclaims himself to be God. And then Jerusalem is surrounded, the city sacked. Okay, those who have come to the realization that Yeshua is Lord will flee to Petra. Okay, and then this is when the waters will come and cause desolation. And at this point, Yeshua will come down. This is when he comes down, the Mount of Olives split. It is when the Mount of Olives split that the people who have now come to the saving realization of Yeshua will run through the pass and go into Petra. And then the other half, most of the people will be taken into captivity. Okay? And then at some point later, the captives at Petra will cry out to Yeshua, and Yeshua will come down and rescue them. This is when he comes with the sickle. Okay, this is when he rescues those children of Jacob who have come to the realization that Yeshua is Lord. And then he will also bring the other exiles back from the exile, those who were taken into captivity. And then Yeshua will do battle. Okay, and this will be the first grape harvest. This will be in the valley of Jehoshaphat, which is in Jerusalem. Okay. And then Yeshua will take the remnant up to the heavenly Jerusalem. They will stand before the throne as described in Revelation 15. Okay, the saints who have now become elect. Okay, the children of Jacob. And then Yeshua will give the bowls to the angels who will pour out the bowls upon the earth, upon the kingdom of the beast. And then the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet will go and summon all the kings of the earth for the great battle of Armageddon. So in heaven, Yeshua will, the wedding feast of the Lamb will take place, Revelation 19. The remnant children of Jacob who were taken up will be the guests. Okay, their deeds during this period will be the bride, the elect, will be clothed in the deeds of the saints who have been taken up. Okay, and that's the reason why the wedding cannot take place until the guests, the remnant saints who have now become elect are brought in. And then after the wedding, Yeshua comes down with his 144,000 to come and do the battle of Armageddon, where the beasts and false prophets will be destroyed and cast into the bottomless pit. So, of course, the covenant, because when Yeshua came the first time, his ministry began the second year at the end of the second, no, at the end of the first year of the Shemitah cycle, and this is the first year of the Shemitah cycle, the Jubilee. So Yeshua's ministry will begin at the end of this year. Okay, and of course the covenant will be for 7 years, but at the middle of the 7 years it'll be broken. Now, there's another thing. The God has orchestrated in such a way that we have two jubilees. Okay, the one jubilee at the beginning of the time of Jacob's trouble, and the time of Jacob's trouble also ends with a jubilee. I don't know how the Lord did it, but he's awesome, because of the count, the count of the Jewish people. Um, the year that we're in is the year 5783, and it's a jubilee year based on the math. When you divide it by seven, um, when you divide the year before by 7 and 49, you get a whole number. So you know that 5783 is a jubilee year. But if you go back and actually do a count from, if you assume that the year 2029 to 2030 is a jubilee year, and you do the count all the way back to the beginning, it fits perfectly. And you actually find out that Yeshua, um the year Yeshua's ministry began, 29 AD, was actually a jubilee year, or was at the end of the Jubilee year. I think the year 28 to the year 29 was a Jubilee year, which is quite incredible. So yeah, all those, you can take a screenshot and look at all the references. Okay, so the first grape harvest, the first atonement harvest, happens when Yeshua comes down to rescue the saints during the time of Jacob's trouble, who have now become elect saints because they have now come to the saving knowledge of Yeshua. So Yeshua comes down, and when he comes down, he does battle against the forces that will at that time be coming against his chosen. And This is when he treads the winepress of the Lord's wrath. And the angel thrust in his sickle into the earth, and gathered the vine of the earth, and cast it into the great winepress of the wrath of God. Revelation 14, verse 19. And the winepress was trodden without the city. Now, the city being spoken of here is Jerusalem. You see, this first atonement takes place just outside Jerusalem in the valley of Jehoshaphat, as we will find out. So, without the city, and blood came out of the winepress, even unto the horses' bridles, by the space of 1,600 furlongs. Revelation 14, verse 20. This is exactly the same thing that's spoken of here in Joel. Let the nations be wakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, for there I will sit to judge all the surrounding nations. Put in the sickle. See? The sickle, the angel, Revelation, puts in the sickle. For the harvest is ripe. Come, go down, for the winepress is full, the vats overflow, for their wickedness is great. Joel 3, verses 12 and 13. So you see here, this is taking place in the valley of Jehoshaphat. Now this is different from the Battle of Armageddon, which is the final atonement harvest. So here, as I said, when Yeshua comes to rescue his elect, those who have now become elect during the time of Jacob's trouble, who fled when the Antichrist went into the temple and Jerusalem was surrounded and sacked, they went through the pass into the mountains, into Petra, which is where Yeshua will come and gather them. Who is this that cometh from Edom with dyed garments from Bozrah? This that is glorious in his apparel, travelling in the greatness of his strength. I that speak in righteousness, mighty to save, because that's what he will be doing when he comes, this scene. Wherefore art thou red in thine apparel, they ask Yeshua, and thy garments like him that treadeth in the wine fat, or the winepress. Isaiah 63, verses 1 and 2. This is when Yeshua treads the winepress alone outside the city. And another angel came out from the altar, who had power over fire, and he cried with a loud cry to him who had the sharp sickle, saying, Thrust in your sharp sickle, and gather the clusters of the vine of the earth, for her grapes are fully ripe. So the angel thrust his sickle into the earth, and gathered the vine of the earth, and threw it into the great winepress of the wrath of God. And the winepress was trampled outside the city of Jerusalem, and blood came out of the winepress up to the horses' bridles for 1,600 furlongs. Revelation 14, verses 18 to 20. This is when Yeshua treads the winepress in the valley of Jehoshaphat, as we read earlier on in Joel chapter 3. And the winepress was trampled outside the city, and blood came out of the winepress up to the horses' bridles for 1,600 furlongs. Revelation 14:20. So this atonement harvest takes place here, the valley of Jehoshaphat. This is Jerusalem. It's the Temple Mount, Moriah, Zion, okay, the valley of Gibeon, the Mount of Olives, and here we have the valley of Jehoshaphat. So this is where this battle will take place. When Yeshua brings back the captives, those who were taken captive after the Antichrist, brings or sets up the abomination which brings desolation. Okay? So, this is the first grape harvest, the first atonement, when Yeshua treads the winepress of Yehovah's wrath in the valley of Jehoshaphat. So, of course, the grape harvest, the atonement, these are the wrongdoers. Okay, so when Yeshua harvests the second wheat harvest, the saints who become elect during the time of Jacob's trouble, okay, another angel comes and harvests the grapes and puts the grapes in the winepress of the Lord. And the angel thrust in his sickle into the earth and gathered the vine of the earth and cast it into the great winepress of the wrath of God. Revelation 14, verse 19. And the winepress was trodden without the city, and blood came out of the winepress, even unto the horses' bridles, by the space of 1,600 furlongs. Revelation 14, verse 20. So this is the same as described in Joel 3, the first grape harvest, the grapes go into the winepress of the Lord, as described in Joel 3. Let the nations be weakened. Let the nations be wakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat. Now, the valley of Jehoshaphat is different from the valley of Jezreel. Jezreel is Armageddon. The valley of Jehoshaphat is in Jerusalem. Okay, so this is different from this atonement. This grape harvest is different from the atonement of Armageddon. Okay, let the nations be wakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, for there I will sit to judge all the surrounding nations. Put in the sickle. You see, the angel put in the sickle. Remember? Same thing, Revelation 14. Put in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come, go down, for the winepress is full, the vats overflow, for their wickedness is great. Joel 3, verses 12 and 13. So you see, the angel casts the grapes into the winepress, Revelation 14. Same thing as Joel sees. Who is this that cometh from Edom and dieth? Who is this that cometh from Edom with dyed garments from Bozrah? This that is glorious in his apparel, traveling in the greatness of his strength. I that speak in righteousness, mighty to save. Wherefore art thou red in thine apparel, and thy garments like him that treadeth in the wine fat. Isaiah 63, verses 1 and 2. So this is after Yeshua has rescued those from Petra, Bosra. Okay? Then he comes and rescues the captives. So the children of Jacob, those that haven't become Israel, Okay, so he's taken the children of Jacob who have become Israel from Petra. Those have been taken out. Then he comes and does battle to rescue the captives, okay, and bring them back to Jerusalem. Okay, so this is what is being described here. When he, because he states that he treads the winepress alone. Okay, so in Isaiah, he states that he treads the winepress alone. I have trodden the winepress alone, and of the people there was none with me. For I will tread them in mine anger, and trample them in my fury, and their blood shall be sprinkled upon my garments, and I will stain all my raiment. For the day of vengeance is in my heart, and the year of my redeemed is come. Isaiah 63, verses 3 to 4. Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision. For the day of the Lord is near in the valley of decisions. The sun and moon will grow dark, and the stars will diminish their brightness. Joel 3, verses 14 and 15. The Lord also will roar from Zion and utter his voice from Jerusalem. See, this battle will be held done, will take place just outside Jerusalem. The heavens and earth will shake, but the Lord will be a shelter for his people and the strength of the children of Israel. So you shall know that I am the Lord your God, dwelling in Zion, my holy mountain. Then Jerusalem shall be holy, and no aliens shall ever pass through her again. Joel 3, verses 16, 17. So, but before this, Yeshua gathers the saints who have become elect, the remnant. Okay, and this is what describes where Yeshua gathers them. And I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and upon the clouds one sat like unto the Son of Man, that's Yeshua, having on his hand a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. And another angel came out of the temple, crying with a loud voice to him that sat on the cloud. I suspect that is the angel Michael, because he carries the voice of the Lord. Thrust in thy sickle and reap, for the time is come for thee to reap, for the harvest of the earth is ripe. And he that sat on the cloud thrust in his sickle in on the earth, and the earth was reaped. Revelation 14, verses 14 and 16. So those who were harvested, the harvest that was reaped from the earth, are those described in because remember, they will be harvested and brought in with 144,000, because you see Yeshua was the first fruit, was our first fruit, but he came in with the barley harvest. Okay, he was the first fruit. Okay, now we are the main harvest, right? But the first fruit of the harvest that will come in during the time of Jacob's trouble will come in with us. That's 144,000 first fruit of the time of Jacob's trouble. So when he's bringing in the remnant from the time of Jacob's trouble, he's bringing them in with the 144,000. Okay? So the 144,000 will accompany the the harvest that's coming in during the time of Jacob's trouble. Okay? Because the uh, first fruit sanctifies the harvest. For if the first fruit be holy, the lump is also holy. And if the root be holy, so are the branches. Romans 11, verse 16. When the Lord turned again the captivity of Zion, we were like them that dream. Then was our mouth filled with laughter and our tongue with singing. Then said they among the heathen, the Lord has done great things for them. Psalm 126, verses 1 and 2. Speaking of when the Lord brings the children of Jacob back from captivity into Jerusalem, and he does battle on their behalf, and he tramples the winepress. The Lord hath done great things for us, wherefore we are glad. Turn again our captivity, O Lord, as the streams in the south, that they that sow in tears shall reap in joy. Psalm 126, verses 3 to 5, speaking of when Yeshua reaps the harvests and he is taking the sheaves back to the heavenly Jerusalem. Remember, at the beginning in Eden, the Lord planted, and now the Lord is reaping his harvest. You see, when he planted in the beginning, the enemy came and sowed tears, and that's the reason why it says here, they that sow in tears shall reap in joy, because now Yeshua is taking his harvest, the harvest that was corrupted at the beginning. Now Yeshua is taking it back. He who continually goes forth weeping, bearing seed for the sowing, shall doubtless come again with rejoicing, bringing his sheaves with him. Psalm 126, verse 6. When the Lord brings his sheaves, his brethren, the children of Jacob, back to the heavenly Jerusalem. He that goeth forth and weepeth, bearing precious seed, shall doubtless come again with rejoicing, bringing his sheaves, wheat sheaves, with him. Psalm 126, verse 6. Sheaves, a bundle of grain, stalks, laid lengthways and tied together after reaping. Sheaves. Remember Joseph's description? The children of Israel described as wheat sheaves. And this is when Yeshua will bring in the remnant into the heavenly Jerusalem, when he brings in the sheaves with the 144,000 accompanying him. Lo, children are a heritage of the Lord, and the fruit of the womb is his reward. As arrows are in the hand of a mighty man, so are children of youth. Happy is the man that hath his quiver full of them. They shall not be ashamed, but they shall speak with the enemies in the gate. Psalm 127, verses 3 to 5. The arrows speak of the 144,000. The arrows in the Lord's quiver. So, remember, the Goyim go in first. For I would not, brethren, that ye should be ignorant of this mystery, lest ye should be wise in your own conceits, that blindness in part is happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles, the fullness of the Goyim, be come in. Romans 11, verse 25. And then during the time of Jacob's trouble, and so all Israel shall be saved, as it is written, there shall come out of Zion the deliverer, and shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob, and make him Israel once again. For this is my covenant unto them, when I shall take away their sins. Romans 11, verses 26 and 27. So, this transformation will take place once again during the time of Jacob's trouble, when the elect saints are redeemed out of the dispensation of Jacob's trouble. Their names are written in the Lamb's Book of Life, and they are taken for the wedding feast. This is when the children of Jacob, who were broken off at the beginning of the age of grace, will be grafted back in to Israel during the time of Jacob's trouble. They will be grafted back in and taken into the heavenly Jerusalem, and they are the ones described in Revelation 15. And I saw something like a sea of glass mingled with fire, that is, before the throne of the Lord. And those who have victory over the beast. So you see, this is describing those who have gone through the time of the beast, the time of Jacob's trouble, over his image and over his mark and over the number of his name, standing on the sea of glass, having harps of God. They're the ones who are raptured out of the time of Jacob's trouble. Revelation 15, verse 2. The remnant children of Jacob, the saints who have now become elect before the sea of glass. Revelation 4, verse 6, and Revelation 15, verse 2. And I saw, as it were, a sea of glass mingled with fire, and them that had gotten the victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, stand on the sea of glass, having the harps of God. Revelation 15, verse 2. And they sing the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb, saying, Great and marvelous are thy works, Lord God Almighty. Just and true are thy ways, thou King of saints. You see, it is the saints who are rescued out of the time of Jacob's trouble. So they are now the elect saints who will be the guests at the wedding, at the Lamb's wedding feast. Revelation 15, verse 3. And I heard, as it were, the voice of a great multitude, the elect bride, and as the voice of many waters, and as the voice of mighty thundering, saying, Hallelujah, for the Lamb, for the Lord God omnipotent reigneth. Let us be glad and rejoice, and give honor to him, for the marriage of the Lamb is come, and his wife hath made herself ready, and to her was granted that she should be arrayed in fine linen, clean and white. And this fine linen is what? For the fine linen is the righteousness of saints, not the elect now, the righteousness of saints. And he saith unto me, Write, Blessed are they which are called into the marriage supper of the Lamb. And he saith unto me, These are the true sayings of God. Revelation 19, verses 6 to 9. Now, the second grape harvest and atonement takes place in the valley of Megiddo, which is up north. The first atonement harvest takes place in Jerusalem, the valley of Jehoshaphat. The valley of Megiddo is also referred to as the valley of Jezreel. This is where the second and final atonement harvest will take place. But here it says nothing about Yeshua treading the winepress of Jehovah's wrath. The day referred to as that day, the final war, Armageddon. When Yeshua will come down with his 144,000 and defeat the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. I hope this study has helped you. I hope you now know the difference between Jacob and Israel. I hope you now understand what it is to be grafted in to Israel. I hope you realize that if you have been grafted in and have become elect, that you will not see the Antichrist. You will not be here for the time of Jacob's trouble. However, you will be here for the 10 days of tribulation which takes place before the birth of the man-child and his elect bride into the heavenly Yerushalayim. So, be encouraged, be comforted, and rejoice. He is coming. You see, once before, over 2,000 years ago, he came as a gentle sacrificial lamb to pay for our sins. When he returns in the near future, he is coming with great wrath and anger as a terrible, fierce judge to judge the earth. So please, make peace with him now. He is coming, and he is angry. Now, how do I make peace with him, I hear you ask? Well, it is easy as ABC. A. Admit that you're a sinner. As Romans 3 verse 23 tells us, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. And Romans 6 verse 23 tells us, for the wages of sin is death. B. Believe that Jesus paid for your sin at the cross. As Romans 5 verse 8 tells us, but God demonstrates his own love for us while we were still sinners. Christ died for us. And Romans 6 verse 23 tells us, but the free gift of God is eternal life in Jesus Christ, as opposed to the wages of sin, which is death. And finally, C, confess that Jesus is the Son of God and commit your life to him. As Romans 10 verse 9 states, that if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved and become Israel, chosen, elect, part of the bride. Thank you very much for listening to me. I remain your faithful watchman, standing on the wall, blowing the horn as loudly as I can. And I'm out.